is Natalie Martinez, and this is my book review on The Voice Catcher. So, I'm going to start off with the three things that surprised me. The first thing that surprised me was how many of these voice assistant devices there are, and then just the level of personalization and evolution that they have gotten to. So, the first thing was that it was mentioned that these voice assistants are still in the formative stage and that there's still a lot more that can be done, it just isn't done yet. So, I found that really interesting because there's already been a big jump and a big evolution with these. I remember the iPhone 4S, and that was really my first exposure to these voice assistants and just kind of how we are today. I remember Siri really saying things like, "Oh, I can't do that yet," or "I'm not connected to that, so I can't do that." But now that's not really an answer, and they answer us like 99% of the time. Another thing that caught my attention was that there are over a billion of these devices, and Amazon alone claims that Alexa is present in hundreds of millions of these. Once again, really crazy because it really started off with just the iPhone 4S, and now almost everyone has access to these voice assistants in some way, shape, or form. The level of personalization is also really crazy. In the book, it mentions a story about Gerald and James. They are in James's kitchen, and then their voice assistant comes on and says that a teenager has missed their curfew. James and Gerald tend to ignore this notification because they don't have a kid and they don't want to be nosy. But this could really be used in so many beneficial ways other than parents just being strict and kind of wondering where their children are. It can help with like missing persons reports, missing children, kidnapping, crime in the area, all things like that. Even though that wasn't specifically mentioned in the book, that's kind of where my mind went and how this technology could be used other than parents just like being overprotective of their children. It also mentions apples and there being a favorite brand of apples, but I will mention that in my last later on point. So the biggest thing from this first section was how just common these devices are, how personal they can get, the evolution, and everything we can do with them now. The second thing that surprised me was that it was mentioned that by the late 2000s, computer speech recognition and appropriate responses had advanced enough that a Microsoft executive was able to schedule his appointments using a Microsoft lab, and then they were also trying to figure out a medical avatar, and that could be used to ask children questions about their symptoms and then give them a diagnosis based on their answers. We can kind of, going back to that first thing, we can kind of use our voice assistants to schedule appointments, but not really to an extreme extent. Like you can be like, "Hey Alexa, set a reminder to get an oil change," or schedule a meeting with so and so. What does my day look like? Join this team's meeting. But as of right now, we can't be like, "Hey Alexa, call my doctor and cancel my appointment," which I do think that is in the future and that is something that we can do going on or moving forward. We're just not quite there yet. But it was mentioned in the book, and it was definitely an interesting thing to think about because a lot of people hate calling the doctor or calling the dentist and making appointments, but now you can really just be like, "Hey Alexa, do it for me," and once again goes back to the convenience, goes back to the personalization, goes back to the evolution, everything like that. um from the same section of the book and second thing, the customer contact center was really interesting and something that I did not think about. It was stated that they had more information on Americans than any other marketing area, but they struggle to use this information in an effective manner. And it just kind of goes back to the point of like you can have all the tools, but it's really what you do with those tools that makes a difference. In the 1970s was when the toll-free calls were invented, and there was a lot of change that took place after that. People were able to buy things over the phone, which we can still do today and still do, but like it's not very common, but that was a big change. The interactive response system was played, so that's when you choose a number to kind of direct your call. This gave the people in the call centers a lot of information, really good things, and just kind of gave them an opportunity to direct your call better. Now I feel like we have feel the need to explain our situation to the full extent, but really call centers don't need that. They already know a lot. So that was really interesting. And before this interactive response, kind of the goal of these call centers was really just to keep up with the flow, but now it's just to be as effective as possible. And we can also kind of see this in our Glambot, or not our Glambots, our like AI chatbots. I've interacted with a Glambot that's done this. It's like, very general. Then it kind of gives me options and then directs me based off of that response. So we're kind of seeing the same thing just in a different way. And so yeah, I think that's really cool. The last thing that surprised me from the book was the voice profiling. So voice profiling is a process of analyzing a person's voice to gain insights into their personality, emotions, and even their potential health conditions. This is really cool, really crazy, but also very interesting at the same way, and definitely will play into the convenience factor and the seductive surveillance. There was an example of the apples. So basically, it was that someone asked their voice assistant, like, hey, where are the closest apples? And then they were like, oh, the closest apples are here. However, your favorite apples are somewhere else. So if you want to travel a little bit farther, you can get your favorite apples because they just came in stock. A lot of personalization, really interesting to think about, but with that, Michael Dobbs focused on the idea and the question on how our devices will favor companies over one another and when we ask them questions. So the example in the book was someone asking their voice assistant, oh, what's a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi? Now, it mentioned bringing up Starbucks. This is not a unique feature to just Starbucks, so it's kind of like how would Starbucks be the first one and what would Starbucks have to give to be the one that the voice assistant recommends. Yeah, so like also there's like really crazy things. Also that executives are trying to use data from your voice to persuade you in different ways, different emotions, act on different moods, things like that, because we all know that like when we're in different moods we want different things, and like all that type of things. Very interesting. A lot of people thought that before the 2020 pandemic and COVID and just all those things, that people would not respond well to voice profiling and that it would be way too creepy and that they would just not want it at all. But mid 2000 or mid 2020s that they would. Now that we're in the mid 2020s, I really think that we are really open to voice profiling and would be something that a lot of people would be interested in. I think yeah, before the 2020 COVID-19 or 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic, people wouldn't have been open to it. But now that we went through so many technological changes and advances, especially during that time, people would definitely be open to it and definitely really weighing into that convenience factor. Okay, so the brand that I chose for all of this having a big impact is e.l.f. It is a makeup brand. It stands for Eyes, Lips, Face. They are an affordable makeup brand and they make dupes for high-end products. They have a very strong consumer base and have a lot of brand loyalty. The biggest thing would be the personalization, like Alexa letting someone know when their makeup is going to expire, like, hey, your mascara is going to expire next week. You should get a new one so you don't get styes or an eye infection. When a new product is launching, when a new product is stocked, or just kind of when they are close to someone's location, recommending products, and then knowing your schedule. So it'd be kind of cool to have Alexa or any voice assistant be like, "Good morning, Natalie. It is 8:30 in the morning. It is time for you to start getting ready. You just bought X product. How do you like it? Or remember to try X product." So yeah, something that I thought of that would be really cool. Advertising their products would really be the biggest thing that came out of the impact of all this stuff mentioned in the book on the specific brand. And then how it would create a contextual experience, or how it would create a contextual experience, um, would be kind of like once the product is purchased, the device recognizing when it's time for it to be used, or recognizing that the purchase was made in the first place, and then it could recommend tutorials or how other people have used the product. So like another example, good morning, Natalie, it's time to start the day. Before you use your brand new e.l.f. concealer, it is recommended to prep the skin using this e.l.f. moisturizer. And then it could advertise both of the brands or both of the products and like really advertise the brand more. Another option would be asking the person getting ready or the person using these brands if they wanted to see a YouTube tutorial on using these products. That would kind of go back to the idea that Michael Dobbs had of like how would these companies also pair with the other ones and be the first choice necessarily. So even being like, oh, do you want to see TikToks, or do you want to see Instagram Reels? Do you want to see Lemonade ads? Like things like that would be kind of cool, or kind of how they could really create this contextual experience. And then you could also get information that comes from past reviews and have someone review it right away. So like your voice assistant asking you, hey, like you used this product this morning because you just purchased it. How was it? And then maybe setting a time for 2 weeks for ask how you're enjoying it, and then use that data for the future to recommend it or recommend other products to yourself or others. So yeah, that is my review on The Voice Catchers. Overall, a very great book, very interesting, very eye-opening, and there are many brands, companies, things that you could just apply so many of these concepts to.